Hello, my darlings. Welcome to the video. Today, we're exploring Bulgaria from an astrological point of view, spiritual, cultural, somehow, to the extent that I know about Bulgaria, because I'm not Bulgarian. We're neighbors, though. I am from Romania. I'm from Romania. We're neighbors, and even though we're neighbors, we don't have that much of a strong relationship, and that's for historical reasons. But lately, throughout the Balkans, neighbors have started getting along better with one another. And Bulgaria is, for me, it's not one of my favorite countries for different reasons. But this doesn't mean it has to be the same for you. I'm not gonna be so enthusiastic about Bulgaria as I would be about other countries, but it's worth looking at it as it's worth looking at all other countries. From a spiritual, like I said, from a spiritual, historical, cultural way somehow. Okay, so I want to dive a bit deeper into Bulgaria's history first of all, before going into Bulgaria's chart. And actually Bulgaria's charts. Because just like Romania, Bulgaria is one of those countries for which it's a bit hard to tell exactly which is the 0 point that we should take into consideration when looking at the chart, and therefore looking at the energies that are present there for Bulgaria. Now, before looking at the charts, and even before looking at the history of Bulgaria, I want to talk a little bit about what I get intuitively as an energy reading for Bulgaria as a collective. Okay, what I'm gonna say next is as a collective. Individuals are individuals. If you're Bulgarian and what I'm gonna say next triggers you, that means something, okay? You need to look into that. But Bulgarians, just like all other Slavs, have a very heavy karma as a collective. Slavs all together are ruled by Pisces, and Pisces is a sign of karma. Deep karma that leads to suffering, karma that can only be purged by suffering. And well, when you look at the history of different Slavic nations, you can understand why they have that karma. And again, if what I said triggers you, maybe you need to look into that. Historically, Slavs haven't been some of the most peaceful people. Let's just say it like that. Alright. Now, of course, it depends, because there are many different types of Slavs, and they're not all the same. And some of them don't even suffer other Slavs. It's so... But collectively, the Slavic nations are have very deep karma and bad karma. And that's why I don't like these collectives. When I tap into their energy, I immediately feel repulsed, because it's such dense karma. And these collectives harbor a lot of people with this kind of karma, people who need to come incarnate to solve this karma, and I literally just heard suffer through their karma. Now, if you're not Eastern European, you may not know exactly, like, you may not know how Slavic societies, you may not know the extent of all of the cultural nuances of Slavic people, but there are a lot of families in Slavic nations with heavy generational karma, heavy generational curses, karma, things that need to be solved, but they're not solved. And unfortunately, in a lot of Slavic nations, more and more generations just add up to that karma. Now, communism didn't do any good to Eastern Europe, it just added even more trauma, even more deep stuff because communism, basically, what communism did to people was to annihilate their emotional nature, to just make them incredibly emotionally ignorant. And you see this with a lot of people in Eastern Europe. The older they are, the more emotionally numb they are, unfortunately. But more and more courageous souls are coming incarnate to work through all of this. Now, amongst this whole group of Slavic nations, Bulgarians are a bit different. Yay! Yay for Bulgaria! This is not to say that Bulgarians don't have heavy karma within their collective. They do. I mean, it's Eastern Europe. But compared to the other Slavs, they are different. And not just energy-wise, also historically. But it makes sense, like, obviously, if they're different energy-wise, they're different historically. If they're different historically, they're different energy-wise, So, historically, Bulgarians are not as Slavic as other Slavic nations. They are a bit more Asian than the other Slavs. Well, this is, even though the origin of the Slavs is still debated, it's presumed to be somewhere in the northeast of Europe. This is for the Slavs. But the Bulgars were not Europeans. So the thing with Bulgarians is that the name Bulgaria refers to a certain group of people, the Bulgars. It just sounds like food for some reason. So the Bulgars were people from Asia. And at some point in history, there were a lot of migrations and a lot of invasions. And this is exactly what that part of European history is called, like the time of migrations and or invasions. And right after the fall of the Roman Empire, well, basically coinciding with the fall of the Roman Empire and causing the fall of the Roman Empire were a lot of migrations. But for the west of Europe, these migrations were primarily from the north of Europe, from Germanic tribes and Vikings, which are Germanic tribes. But the east of Europe had a different fate, because the east of Europe saw a lot of invasions from Asian tribes. A lot of the invasions and migrations from Slavs, but also a lot of invasions and migrations from Asian tribes. The Bulgars were one of those tribes. And the first Bulgaria, historically, is not even in Europe. It's not where nowadays Bulgaria is. The first Bulgaria is... I'm not sure exactly, I don't remember exactly where it was, but I think somewhere in nowadays Russia, somewhere there. I'm not certain, but it was definitely not where it is today. And basically, the Bulgars migrated a lot, and eventually they came to Europe. They came to the east of Europe, and they came to the land that is nowadays Bulgaria. When they came there, they merged with some Slavic tribes. It is said that there were 7 Slavic tribes in the area already, and they kind of had an alliance, basically, to rule over the land. But the Bulgars were the literally ruling class. So this went on for a little while, but the more time passed, the more the Slavs assimilated the Bulgars. So eventually the Bulgars were lost as a class in itself, and they just got assimilated into the local population, which became Slavic, basically. But it's not just the Bulgars and these 7 Slavic tribes. It's also another layer of the Bulgarian population made of the local population, basically. So the local population of nowadays Bulgaria, the people that did not migrate there, those were called the Thracians. And I know quite a lot about them because my ancestors, our ancestors, the ancient ancestors of Romanians, were also part of the Thracian people, but they were a little bit different. They were called the Dacians, but they were still part of the Thracian family of people. So back into antiquity, we're kind of related, Romanians and Bulgarians, even though nowadays history doesn't want to talk about that. I'm pretty sure not a lot of people in Bulgaria know about this. I'm pretty sure not a lot of Bulgarians know about the Dacians, the ancient ancestors of Romanians, who are ethnically cousins of the Thracians, the ancient ancestors of Bulgarians, which would make us, look at each other in a different way, in a more related way somehow. But yeah, it's not what some people want. Nonetheless, I just wanted to add that there a little bit. And it makes a lot of sense because if you look at, Romania and Bulgaria, there are some common traits to a lot of people, but unfortunately it's mostly the bad traits that are very common. But we're getting better. Hopefully we're getting better. All right. So this ancient population, they were basically some badass people throughout antiquity. The Greeks knew about them. The Greeks respected them for the fact that they were very good in terms of fighting. And historical records do talk about Thracians being, very good warriors. And actually, there is a Greek legend, you can call it so, or myth, or whatever, call it how you want. But basically the ancient Greeks said that the Thracians, the name Thracians comes from a guy who was supposed to be their common ancestor, and his name was Thrakos, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's his name. I may be wrong a bit. I may mispronounce it a little bit, but I think it's that. And they said this guy was the son of Mars. And it makes a lot of sense, because they're good warriors. But they weren't really as civilized as the Greeks and the Romans. They were still part of the barbarian people. So that was the local population from ancient times of the nowadays Bulgaria. So when the Slavs came, they did the same thing. They assimilated the local population. But the local population at the time of these migrations was not the same as it was back in antiquity. That antiquity that, I just talked about with those historical sources that talk about the Thracians being good warriors and all of that, and the Greeks respecting them. The more time passed, the Thracians kind of lost their culture and identity a bit. And, the Eastern Roman Empire, which later became the Byzantine Empire, did not really help the Thracians. So they weren't doing that well. And this is exactly why when the Slavs migrated to the area, it was a lot easier for them to assimilate the local population. And that's why the local population became Slavic rather than Thracian. Nonetheless, nowadays Bulgarians love to claim their ancient ancestry and ancient ancestors, the Thracians. They love to talk about them. I have a theory. They love to talk about the Thracians so much because the Thracians are the only local ancestors that they have. The other two ancestors are not so local. Especially the Bulgars. And I saw a lot of Bulgarians actually online. Whenever people talk about the Bulgars, there are so many Bulgarians who get so triggered when you remind them that the Bulgars are not Europeans. Like, as if someone is gonna throw them out of Europe because of that, Like, it's so... Yeah. There are some Bulgarians who are very nationalistic, unfortunately, and very fanatic about that. you get that kind of people in every country, but the Bulgarians one really go an extra mile. So this is basically their ancestry. A little bit of Thracians, the local population, then Slavic, and that's how they became Slavic, basically, with the Slavic migrations that settled in the area. And then the Bulgars, that eventually also got assimilated in the local Slavic population. And that's why the Bulgarians are a little bit not like the other Slavs, and that's also why their language also sounds a bit different. It's not as harsh as the other Slavic languages. And in terms of language, actually, the Cyrillic alphabet, the Slavic alphabet, started in Bulgaria. And a lot of Bulgarians also love to talk about that. And be like, we are the leading Slavic nation culturally because we started the alphabet and all that. But their history is a bit different. But this is more like towards the end of antiquity and the beginning of the Middle Ages. Basically, the age of migrations is in the first part of the Middle Ages. All right, so once the Bulgars settled in, well, they were kind of like, they were one of those tribes of people that had a mentality of conquering a lot of land and all of that. And that's exactly what they did in the area. And some parts of Romania also were part of the first Bulgarian Empire, because that's what they called it. The first Bulgaria in the nowadays Bulgaria was called the First Bulgarian Empire. And the dates are between 681 to 1018. This is the time when we have the First Bulgarian Empire, when, like I said, some parts of Romania were part of the First Bulgarian Empire, and also a lot of other territories around nowadays Bulgaria. The First Bulgarian Empire was bigger than nowadays Bulgaria. Then we have the Second Bulgarian Empire from 1185 to 1396. And if you are from the Balkans, if I say 1396, you may guess why this is the end date of the Second Bulgarian Empire. If you're not from the Balkans, let me explain. You see, there's a certain point in history. Starting from that point, all of the Balkan nations have a common enemy: the Ottoman Empire. But this is not to say that the Ottoman Empire was the only enemy of the Bulgarian Empire, because the Bulgars were fighting the Byzantine Empire a lot. And during this time, they started doing a dance that they kept on doing for the rest of their history, allying with either the Byzantine Empire against the Ottoman Empire, either the Ottoman Empire against the Byzantine Empire, taking turns like that. And that kept on till the last century. You have so many episodes with Bulgaria allying with Greece against Turkey. You have so many episodes with Bulgaria allying with Turkey against Greece. And, you know, like, these three guys, Bulgaria, Turkey, and Greece, they have a very long history together, and it's not peaceful at all. At all. They just, historically, all they did together was wars. But later on you have Bulgaria, Greece, and Turkey. Back then, it was the Bulgarian Empire, the Bulgars, the Byzantine Empire, and the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire is the predecessor of nowadays Turkey. Okay. So, eventually, the land of nowadays Bulgaria got conquered by the Ottoman Empire, and this would be the fate of all of the Balkan nations eventually. There's a span of about 500 years, 5 centuries, that really define the Balkan nations being in a fight with the Ottoman Empire, against the Ottoman Empire, because the Ottoman Empire basically they were Muslims, and they had this Muslim, I don't even know what to call it, delusion of turning the whole world Muslim. And basically that's how a lot of Arab conquering tendencies started. This is not to say that the Ottomans are Arabs. The Ottomans are Turkic people. They had Arabs in their empire, but that's a whole other conversation. But they were Ottoman. They were Muslim. And they had this delusion of turning the whole world Muslim, but to some extent that might have just as well been just a pretext for political conquering, for territorial conquering and war and all of that. Yeah. A lot of that happened in history. And you know, whenever I hear people from the USA and like people from places that were historically, you know, conquered and turned into colonies by the British Empire, you know, whenever I hear some of the people from those territories be like, oh, white people, you know, white people, they always want to rule the world and like all of that, and I'm here like, the Balkan Europe was like for 5 centuries fighting against the Ottoman Empire. Shut up, just shut up. But it's, you know, certain people like to generalize because it's simpler for them to look at the world in that way, rather than understanding the complexities of human nature and just people worldwide. All right. So the version of Bulgaria that existed at the time became how should I say it in English? A province of the Ottoman Empire. And it wasn't good for them. It wasn't a good time for them. Well, and like I said, this eventually became the fate of all of the Balkan nations, becoming, being under the Ottoman Empire, being provinces of the the Ottoman Empire. And it went on for a while until, due to certain social and cultural and economical reasons and all of that, the Ottoman Empire got a little bit weakened, and the Ottoman Empire started having more powerful enemies. And we get to a point in the 19th century, which is the 1800s, when we have a political player called the Russian Empire. And they didn't like the kind of influence that the Ottoman Empire had. So they started something called the Russian-Turkish Wars. And throughout these wars, basically the Balkan nations had the opportunity of regaining independence, national autonomy from the Ottoman Empire. And it happened in waves. The Russian-Turkish Wars had a lot of episodes. Like, if you're American and you look into this, you're gonna be like, what? You'll be amazed by how many waves of the Russian-Turkish Wars there were. And that's the thing, it wasn't one war. It was the series of Russian-Turkish wars. It went on for a while. But for the Balkan nations, this was basically the window through which they regained independence. And this is what happened for Bulgaria as well. Now, it wasn't so fast. And it wasn't so fast for Romania either. Because it was a window of regaining independence, but it was still a complicated process with all of the politics going on. So when this happened for Bulgaria in 1878, not the entire region of Bulgaria gained independence. It was just a part of it that regained autonomy from the Ottoman Empire. Another part of it was still under the Ottoman Empire, and only later on rejoined the bigger portion of Bulgaria. And that's why we have two dates in terms of independence. So we have 3rd of March 1878 as the point in history when the Principality of Bulgaria starts existing. And that's to this day, Bulgarians celebrate the 3rd of March as their Liberation Day. That's what they call it. And it's basically their national day. But like I said, it wasn't all of Bulgaria at the time that was liberated. And this happened later on in 1808. In sorry, in 1908, in 1908, on the 5th of October, is when the independence from the Ottoman Empire happened fully. And in most cases, you know, a lot of people would say that's the time when we should look at the chart. That's the date we should take to draw out the birth chart of Bulgaria. But is it really? Because we have the 3rd of March 1878, which is literally their national day. So is it 3rd of March 1878? Is it 5th of October 1908? Which one is it? None. These are dates that defined what Bulgaria was at that time. Remember, this is Eastern Europe. Something devastating happened to Eastern Europe in the second half of the last century, which is communism! Yay! The thing that destroyed every kind of hope in the hearts of the people. Officially, it is said that on the 5th of September 1946, this is the end of that version of Bulgaria, and it's the time when monarchy was abolished. This is what this date is defined as: monarchy abolished on the 15th of September 1946. It's not monarchy. This is not what it should be called. It's the beginning of the fucked up time of communism. That's what it actually is. And also, if you look at what the events that played out for Bulgaria throughout the Second World War, it's also, you know, but that's another topic. And then we have the post-communist Bulgaria, which is the nowadays Bulgaria, basically. Nowadays Bulgaria that, you know, got out of communism, went through the transition time, just like all Eastern European former communist nations. And basically the 90s for Eastern Europe were such a pivotal but chaotic time. Nonetheless, the most probable date we can look at is the 15th of November 1990 for nowadays Bulgaria, because this is the current version of Bulgaria. But still, the question arises, because like I said, their national day is still the 3rd of March, which celebrates the 3rd of March 1878. So I have all three charts here. The problem though is that I have no hour. So I have all of these dates, but I have no hour. And alas, I'm not Bulgarian. I can only read the texts that are in English or Romanian. But if I see documents in Bulgarian, I'm gonna be like, what the fuck is that? I don't understand. So, without an hour, I don't have an ascendant. I have hypothetically the ascendant based on what I saw online to be taken as the birth chart of Bulgaria, and that's basically Sagittarius rising, which is not so Bulgarian, pardon me, but no, Bulgaria doesn't feel like Sagittarius, it feels like Capricorn. How do I know? Yes, how? It feels like Capricorn. Now, I have a theory. There was a time when Bulgaria was Sagittarius rising. It makes a lot of sense. Like I said, the first version of Bulgaria in Europe, in the Middle East, it was an empire. And they had a mentality of conquering, which is Sagittarius, expansion. Sagittarius expands. For countries, it's expansion of territory, which is not so nice for the neighbors. But alas, we cannot change history. So for the first time, the first part of its existence, Bulgaria was Sagittarius rising. It wasn't necessarily a Sagittarius rising that's, like other kind of empires that defined themselves more culturally, more like elite, more like, it's a more barbarian empire, to say so. It's a more not so cultural type of identity as an empire, which does give hints of Capricorn energy even back then. And we'll look into it. But later on, Bulgaria became Capricorn rising. Today, Bulgaria is Capricorn. You cannot tell me otherwise. No. 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 And actually, what was happening in Capricorn throughout the late 80s and beginning of the 90s, when you look at those placements, it's basically Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus in Capricorn. Saturn and Neptune together, when communism started, it started by a conjunction of Saturn and Neptune. Saturn and Neptune got together again at the fall of communism, but it was with Uranus. I say Uranus, it sounds a lot better. So Uranus is all about revolution. It's all about new things, changing things, bringing things to a new state of mind, a new mentality, more freedom. So it makes a lot of sense when you look at the chart and the placements of Capricorn throughout that time were significant for Eastern Europe. Okay, So, now, let's look at the charts. So, first date that I have is the 3rd of March, 1878, which, like I said, it's their national day, Independence Day, all of that, yay, yay. And I kind of drew it with a Sagittarius rising, more so in honor of its former glory of the Bulgarian empires. I'm still not sure if I should take it as Sagittarius rising or Capricorn rising. So we may just look at the possibilities of either one of them being the rising. Now, if you're Bulgarian and you have any historical knowledge about, you know, how this happened and what was happening at the time and what might be the hour of declaring independence for the Principality of Bulgaria at the 3rd of March, 1878, tell me, because that way we can see which is the rising. But most probably it's one of them. It's either Sagittarius or Capricorn. But nonetheless, they are connected because Jupiter is in Capricorn. We have no placement in Sagittarius. We have Jupiter at the 27th degree of Capricorn. If we take Sagittarius rising, you know, if we take Sagittarius as the ascendant, the ruler of the ascendant in Capricorn, and not just in Capricorn, but the last degrees of Capricorn, it's not even in the last decan, it's already in the last 5 degrees of Capricorn. This says that this is already a mature nation. Well, it was back then. I'm not saying it's now. Now it's fucked up. But back then, chances are it was a lot more mature as a nation back then than it is now. Okay. So this is a nation that has the energy of maturity in it. It's the maturity of understanding your identity. It's the Lord of the Ascendant in Capricorn. And it talks about feeling old as a nation. Now, if we look at the history of the Bulgars themselves, they predate the existence of Bulgaria in Europe. So they come from Asia, but they existed, you know, they have a longer history. Then in Aquarius, we have the North Node in Aquarius at the 22nd degree. And not only do we have the North Node in Aquarius, we also have Venus at the 26th degree with Mercury at the 27th and possibly even the Moon. Because since I don't know the ascendant, I don't know the hour, basically the Moon throughout that day was in between the 29th degree of Aquarius and the 11th degree of Pisces. But the North Node in Aquarius, innovation, independence, freedom, revolution, it's there. With Venus and Mercury, this is like you know, it's like trying to achieve this diplomatically. But alas, it's not that easy of a process, because it's in an opposition to Uranus in Leo. But I'll get to that. All right, so then we have the Sun in Pisces, which for Bulgaria, it's there. It's there. The Sun in Pisces, for a nation that defines itself as an Orthodox Christian nation, it's there. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there's this thing called Orthodox Christianity, and Eastern European nations love to define themselves as Christian nations, Orthodox, the right Christianity. What the fuck? But yeah, Eastern European nations, Greece included, they love to define their national identity as Christian Orthodox. Know that. For Romania, there are even songs about this and all of that, and I'm pretty sure there are for Bulgaria as well. Alright. And Pisces is Christianity. Pisces rules Christianity. So there you go. The Sun, identity, who I am, who I shine as, the crown I wear in front of the world. Pisces, yes, Christianity. It's there. It's very Bulgarian. But the Sun is in the same house with Saturn. So we have kind of a communication here between Jupiter, Lord of the Ascendant in Capricorn. Okay. The dispositor of that, the ruler of Capricorn, is in Pisces. Which again makes a lot of sense, right? We have a very Christian nation. And it's with the Sun. The Sun also talks about spirituality. So who is Bulgaria? Bulgaria is a nation that is very old and very Christian, Orthodox Christian. And Saturn in Pisces screams Orthodox Christian. Because Orthodox Christianity is a lot more traditional than other types of Christianity, and it's a lot more shadowy. Like even the churches, the Orthodox churches, when you go inside an Orthodox church, it's very dark. There are a lot of candles to have some visibility, but it's a dark place. And Orthodox Christianity is a very institutional type of Christianity. Well, just like Christianity generally, basically. It's very institutional, which is very Capricornian and Saturnian. And very, you know, they have a lot of hierarchies of priests and all of that, and traditions and whatnot, and blah, 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 stupid stuff. But we have Lilith in Pisces as well, right next to the Sun. So this, basically Lilith is an energy that says, hey, there's something here I don't like. I don't really like this, I'm gonna go my own way, do it differently. So we have Lilith with this energy of rebellion and doing it differently, right next to the sun, who is identity, who is Bulgaria, basically. And this kind of shows that at the time Bulgaria was not really satisfied with its place in the world. Well, obviously, duh. But it's a fight, basically, with the Sun and Saturn in the same place. Both the Sun and Saturn are authority figures. And that's exactly what Bulgaria was doing at the time, fighting for autonomy and choosing to have different authority figures, to break away from its traditional authority figure, which was the Ottoman Empire at the time. Then in Taurus, we have Chiron at the 0 degree, we have Neptune at the 5th degree. And here it comes. We have Mars at the 19th degree and Pluto at the 23rd degree. This is devastating. Mars and Pluto in the same place is not a good thing. It's not a good thing. Because this screams war, power struggles, intensity, crisis, a lot of those. And Bulgaria kind of had a lot of those, still has. And Bulgaria was in a lot of wars. A lot of wars. And take my country, for example. We've been in a lot of wars as well, but, you know, when we're talking about the world wars, when the First World War broke out, Romania was at a very peaceful state. And it had been in that peaceful state for quite a while, for quite a few decades. Bulgaria wasn't. Bulgaria was in a war, and right after that war, there came the First World War. And it's not like that war was the only one they had. Like, they had series of wars after series of wars after series of wars. I already told you at the beginning of the video, like, they had a lot of series of wars with Greece against Turkey, with Turkey against Greece, Greece and Turkey against Bulgaria, and so on. So it's not cool. It's not okay. And the Mars and Pluto are together in Taurus, so it's a grasp of resources, basically. Whatever resources would be at play, there is this thing of resources being at play and being fought for. But it's also Neptune in the same house, so there's a lot of delusion in place. Now, I want to have a side note about one episode from Bulgaria's history which broke out into Balkan history at large. It's my favorite episode in their whole history, and probably like it's close to being my favorite in terms of Balkan history at large as well. No, it's not. It's not for Balkan history at large. I have my baby Dracula playing top. But it's second place. So basically there was this Bulgarian king. And it was before the First World War. He was in a war with Serbia. Serbia was an ally. And if I'm not mistaken, Macedonia, another ally, against, I think, Turkey. Anyways, the first context doesn't matter that much, at least not for me. So basically, it was in a war against a country, and it had two allies. I know for sure Serbia is one of those allies. and it's important for the later part of the story. They succeeded, they won, and through that war, basically Bulgaria got back some territories. Now this Bulgarian king was like, I want more territories. I want more! So he turned against one of his former allies, which I think is Macedonia. And it would make a lot of sense because Bulgaria and Macedonia, you know, there's this whole narrative that Macedonia, North Macedonia is Bulgarian and it should be Bulgarian and all of that. So basically Bulgarians wanted Macedonia, North Macedonia. So he turned against them, which, you know, they were allies, former allies, Serbia included. And I don't remember for sure if he also turned against Serbia, started attacking Serbia or not. But thing is, because of what he did, which is to turn against his former allies, so Serbia got back at them. And with Serbia, all neighbors of Bulgaria, who are Romania, Serbia, Macedonia, North Macedonia, Greece, and Turkey, all 5 neighbors got together and said, you know what? You're not nice, you're stupid, you're not honorable, we don't like how you play, you sit back in your place. All 5 countries got together, they allied against Bulgaria. This is amazing. Like, for 2 reasons. Because this one is instant karma. Sit back, stay in your lane, go back to your place, you're not playing nice. And 2, Romania, Serbia, Macedonia, Greece and Turkey together, like basically so many Balkan nations together, standing together like that, being united, well, united against another Balkan nation, which is so Balkan. But at least you get these 5 guys who decided, you know what, justice. Let's do things right. I love this. I love this. All right. So yeah, Bulgaria has been in a lot of wars, and sometimes, like this episode, because of some kind of episode, it's the kind of mentality, which shows, you know, the Neptune placement there right next to the war gods, Mars and Pluto. Then, in Leo, we have the South Node, and Uranus. And they're very close together. They are in a 4-degree orb at the 22nd and 26th degrees of Leo. Like I said, this is an opposition to the placements in Aquarius, which would either be Aquarius would be either the 2nd or the 3rd house, and Leo would be either the 9th or the 8th house. In a way, it could be the 8th house, which means that the rising is Capricorn. It's hard to say. But there is this opposition here that, you know, Uranus in Leo basically is breaking away from some kind of authority. And Aquarius, the North Node in Aquarius, Venus in Aquarius, Mercury in Aquarius, possibly even the Moon in Aquarius, it's again like a call for independence. Now the ruler of Aquarius himself is in Leo, creating this opposition. So the ruler of Aquarius, Uranus, is in Leo. This basically means, hey, there is some kind of royalty, some kind of ruler, which was the Ottoman Empire at the time, that I don't like. I am in an opposition to that, but I want to be that. Because the ruler of Aquarius is in Leo. It's in an opposition to its own sign. But this turned out to be good, even though it was a long and hard process to obtain this autonomy. Basically, ruler of Aquarius in Leo was like, you know what, I have this authority, this authority figure that I don't like, and I want to be that. I want to be myself, my own authority figure, which for the country translates into independence, regaining sovereignty, which is great. All right. But what is not great at all about this chart for a country, even for a person, is that it's got a big T-square. And it's exactly this which I drew, even though it looks like a trine. It's basically a T-square. There's this opposition between Aquarius and Leo, and then in Taurus we have that particular conjunction that I talked about of the two war gods, Mars and Pluto. So we have this T-square, this opposition, and it's T-squared. It's a double square from the war gods. So this does scream gaining independence through war. Now, it's a war that wasn't necessarily started by Bulgaria, but it's a war they got into for obvious reasons. Maybe in Placidus' system, this placement of Mars and Pluto would be in their 7th house, maybe. But in the whole house system, it's never in the 7th house. If it were in the 7th house, it would show that the neighbors are very violent and very warlike. Nonetheless, this basically defined Bulgaria for the rest of its history. They were just on and on in a war with someone. So this is why this chart in particular is not great. Because it's got that energy imprinted in it. It's a T-square. We have an opposition, we have a double square, and it's exactly from Mars and Pluto. Not only do squares have the energy of Mars and Pluto, but this particular double square in itself comes from Mars and Pluto. But alas, the Sun conjunct Saturn in Pisces, it shows that the nation persists, the nation endures, is an energy of endurance. There is still some kind of suffering and sacrifice involved, but the nation endures, the people endure, and it's primarily through their spirituality, which indeed, it helped the Bulgarians a lot. Okay, then we have the second chart, which is on the 5th of October 1908. And this is the date when they have complete independence from the Ottoman Empire. And as you see, it's 1908. The First World War came shortly after. Yeah. Bulgaria is not a nice place to be. Because it doesn't have quite how should I say it? There's a guy who said it better. Good things don't last long in Bulgaria. And a lot of Bulgarians agree with this. Okay. All right. I need a little break. All right. I'm back. I'm back with the second chart. Like I said, the time when they had complete independence from the Ottoman Empire. Again, no hour, only the day. So, for this chart, I took Capricorn as the rising, but it may be, it just may be Sagittarius. Now, I have a feeling that for this particular chart, and not just this particular chart, but like for at least the first two charts, it's not the whole house system that we should use, and neither Placidus, but it's more likely the equal house system. If you don't know what that means, basically in astrology there are more house systems. The equal system means that a house is, like, all houses are equal, as they should be. I don't like Placidus, because houses are not equal in Placidus. But in the equal house system, a house is not a sign, but always a house is 30 degrees. But the thing is that the chart starts at the ascendant. So if the ascendant is at 15 degrees Sagittarius, the first house is from 15 degrees Sagittarius to 15 degrees Capricorn. Which may just be the case for Bulgaria. I just have a feeling that for Bulgaria in particular, the equal house system is the one. For Romania, the whole house system works wonders. I have a video about Romania because it's the one I started with in terms of countries' natal charts, because it's my country. And for Romania, it's equal house. Sorry, it's whole house system all the way through. And it's very Romanian style, because Romania is also Capricorn rising, but Romania has always been Capricorn rising, no question about that. Very simple, very direct, very simple, keep it that way, we like it that way, we don't change. Very Romanian. No stress, don't bother me. But for Bulgaria, I think it is equal house system. I think it's a combination of Sagittarius and Capricorn. It makes sense when you look at their history that they are a combination of Sagittarius and Capricorn. Like I said, initially they were an empire. They literally came from another continent. The Bulgars came from another continent. This is very Sagittarius. It's nomadic, it's migration, it's going to another place, far away. But they came with conquest, which is the very fiery nature of Sagittarius for countries. Yeah. And eventually they grew into the energy of the first house. They were through the Sagittarius energy and then got into the Capricorn energy, which is the latter portion of their existence as a country and the version of Bulgaria that we know nowadays. And Capricorn shrinks. Capricorn is kind of the opposite of Sagittarius. Sagittarius enlarges, expands, makes things bigger. Capricorn makes things less, makes things shorter, smaller, it diminishes things, and it makes it more compact, more heavy, harder, which is exactly what happened to Bulgaria. So I think the right chart for them, it's a whole house. It's an equal house system, starting with Sagittarius going into Capricorn. Now, I have a feeling this is an intuitive reading that I'm getting. Bulgaria is not going to last long from this point on in time for human history. Bulgaria is not a nation, a country that will last for too long anymore. Now, this doesn't mean that Bulgaria is gonna end 3 years from now, because it's still got that Capricorn energy, but it's not gonna last for a longer span of time as a country. It's gonna end somehow. Maybe for Bulgarians that's sad news. But it's what I'm getting, and it makes a lot of sense when you look at things through the lenses of the equal house system. Like I said, it started as Sagittarius, it went through its Sagittarius time, and then it got into Capricorn. But it doesn't have that much time left of its Capricorn energy, because at the same time Capricorn also means death, also means end, also means seizing things, cutting things. And again, energy reading, when you look at Bulgaria historically, how it started as, it's not an energy of things that last for very long. So there's that. But again, it doesn't mean that it's gonna crumble in 3 days from now, okay? You can be chill, like Bulgarians watching this video, relax. You don't have to worry. Okay. Another reason for which the equal house system, I think it's the right one for Bulgaria, especially for this chart, is that if we look at Sagittarius in this chart, we have the South Node in Sagittarius. So if we take Sagittarius as the starting point of the first house, basically the South Node is at the very last degree of Sagittarius, at the 29th degree. And it makes a lot of sense for what happened, because you know, when I did the research and I googled Bulgarian birth chart, Bulgarian natal chart, this is what came up with Sagittarius rising, with the South Node in Sagittarius. And initially, like, it didn't make sense when I saw Sagittarius rising, because Sagittarius means big. The USA is Sagittarius rising. But it's got the South Node in it. So it's smaller. And it's not smaller from the beginning, because like we saw initially it was a lot bigger, but it shrinked through history because of various factors. But later on, after this date, Bulgaria will lose a lot of its territories. There is this energy of the South Node in Sagittarius, which may very well be the first house. After the First World War, Bulgaria lost a lot of territories. And I'm not sure exactly when, but I know that at one point it lost its shore to the Aegean Sea. If you don't know what I'm talking about, the Aegean Sea, it's the sea between Turkey and Greece nowadays. So you've got the Mediterranean, which is the bigger sea, but the closer you get to the shores, it's no longer the Mediterranean, it's smaller seas that are directly in contact with the shores. For this particular area is the Aegean Sea, the area in between Turkey and Greece. Now, there was a time in history when Bulgaria also had a shoreline to the Aegean Sea, but it lost that shoreline. And nowadays, it's just Greece, and basically you can imagine this as the Aegean Sea. Here is Greece and here is Turkey. There was a time when Bulgaria had a portion around here, a shoreline, but it lost. Part of it went to Greece, part of it went to Turkey. And this is just one example. There's another territory, which is, just like with every other territory, a lot of nations have a historical claim over certain territories because certain territories have been under so many nations throughout history. At one point in history, that territory was under that nation. At another point in history, it was under that other nation. And at another point in history, it was under that other nation. So all of these nations have a historical claim to that territory. And maybe there's even another country involved and all of that. Which is why a lot of countries fight for a national narrative of being the first in the area so that they have the right historical claim. It happens. One of these territories is something called, in Romanian, quadrilaterul, which was disputed between Romania and Bulgaria, and also Dobroja, which gratefully is part of Romania nowadays. But there were times when it was part of Bulgaria, and Bulgaria lost Dobroja to Romania at the end of the First World War. Gratefully for us. But then at the end of the Second World War, quadrilaterul was given to Bulgaria, which is kind of like two counties that were part of Romania and then got part of Bulgaria and then got part of Romania and then got part of Bulgaria and so on. Things like this happened throughout history. So you see, there are portions of Bulgaria that they lost those territories to one of its neighbors, to one or more of their neighbors. And it's exactly the energy of the south node in the first house. It's Sagittarius' first house, so it's territories that historically were not their territories. Again, they're not 100% native. So at one point in history, like, you know, the Bulgarian Empire conquered a lot. Then you give this the south node in Sagittarius in this particular chart, which is the karma they get for the territorial expansion that they had in previous centuries. So it means they lose land at this point. Land, it's in Sagittarius, so it's what they conquered previously. Now they lose it. Which is why it could be the first house, but it could also be the 11th house, the 12th house. Because the 12th house is a house of karma and karmic debts. So whether we look at it as the first house or the 12th house, it still kind of results in the same thing. Then we have Uranus in Capricorn. Somehow, this can also function as the first house in a lower polarity of the manifestation of this energy, because like I said, it lost a lot of territories and it was changed. The country was changed. It was not the same anymore as it used to be. And if we have Uranus in Capricorn, it's kind of like a fight for this nation to be innovative and bring in the new, but also be old and traditionalist and then keep old ways. So it's energies that don't match. And to this day, you can see that in Bulgaria. Then, in Aquarius, we have Chiron. And remember, in the previous chart, it was the Aquarius, the placements in Aquarius that gave the energy portal for the independence movement. Now here we have Chiron there. So it's a wound we have there from this fight for freedom that we've been having. And we're kind of healing from that now. And the moon is there. The moon is... that day, the moon crossed from the 3rd to the 17th degree of Aquarius. So regardless of the degree, the moon is in Aquarius in this chart. So the moon is the people. For the charts of countries, the moon is the people. So this means that we have a population that is healing with Chiron there. But it's healing in a very cold way, because Aquarius is not emotional. Aquarius is not... it doesn't go deep. Like, it's mental. It doesn't go emotionally deep. But it can go deep in a mental way. But it can also cut because of that. So we have a population that is struggling to redefine themselves, basically, with all of these energies, with Uranus, ruler of Aquarius, in Capricorn, which may be the first house. And Capricorn does rule struggles. Then we have the moon in Aquarius. So it's a population that is trying to redefine itself. A country that is trying to redefine itself, but it's wounded through this process. Which makes a lot of sense if you look at what happened at that time for Bulgaria and later on. Then we have no placements in Pisces, which for Bulgaria doesn't make sense. But we have a Neptune placement that is significant. Then we have, this is bad, we have Saturn in Aries. Oh, so it's even at the 6th degree of Aries, which is, you know, Saturn is the 6th planet, 6th degree. Potentially, this is the ruler of the first house, because remember, we can take either Sagittarius, either Capricorn as the sign of the first house. So this is the ruler of the country in Aries. It is a country redefined through war. It's in Aries, it's through war. It's retrograde. Saturn is retrograde here. So it's a war that they get back into. Which is very much the, you know, the whole line of aggression between the three countries in the area. Like I said, Greece, Turkey, Bulgaria, it's mental. They just have a history of wars against one another for so many stupid reasons. One of them is that a dog crossed the border. I'm not kidding. I'm not exaggerating. It happened. Basically, the multiple episodes of wars between these three countries, they're called the Balkan Wars. And one of these wars started because a dog crossed the border from one country to the other. A soldier went after the dog to take the dog back. A soldier from the other country saw that soldier crossing the border, shot the soldier, and then war. Because of a dog crossing the border. Because a soldier going to take that dog back. At this point, you know that it's not about the dog and it's not about the soldier, okay? It's about a very long line of hatred between these countries, of conflict and spite between them, which is very much Saturn in Aries retrograde for the country. It's worse that the country keeps going back into. It's aggression that the country keeps going back into. And it's in an opposition to the Sun in Libra. In this particular chart, the Sun is in Libra. If the ascendant is Capricorn, Libra is the 10th house. And this is quite significant. To have the Sun in the 10th house, this means, first of all, a lot of fame. A lot of fame. To a certain degree, it makes sense for Bulgaria to have the Sun in the 10th house as Libra 10th house, because Bulgarians are famous for Bulgarian roses, which is Libra. It would make sense. So, remember, in the previous chart, the Sun and Saturn were conjunct. They were in the same sign. Well, now it's they are in an opposition. So it's like the cycle of the moon phases. So basically, in the previous chart of the Principality of Bulgaria from 1878, the Sun and Saturn were conjunct. They were in the same place. It's like a new moon. It's seeding something. It's putting the seed there. Now they are in an opposition. So it's like the full moon. It's the release of that. It makes a lot of sense, right? Because the first chart was the chart of the Principality of Bulgaria, which is not the full territory of Bulgaria, gaining autonomy. But there is still Bulgarian land under the Ottoman Empire that, it's not sovereign. At this point, in this second chart, we get full autonomy. So it is the culmination of the seeding point, the intention of autonomy and independence we had in the previous chart. It makes a lot of sense. So it's Saturn retrograde, the conflict, the Aries, Saturn retrograde, in an opposition to the Sun in Libra right now. The Sun in Libra promises a lot more beauty for the land and for the people, and a lot more peace. And this opposition basically is it's a lot of tension and a lot of a big struggle. If you notice, there's a lot of struggle here, an energy of struggle for the nation with Uranus in Capricorn, and then with this opposition. This struggle is about the Sun in Libra. This is a new energy for Bulgaria, and Libra is diplomacy. So it's like wanting to be diplomatic, to approach things differently from diplomatic standpoints. But Saturn retrograde, old ways, old tendencies in Aries, old ways, tendencies of war keep coming back, keep striking. We cannot get out of those. We try. We have the Sun in Libra, and we have monarchy now, because they start having monarchy, which would make a lot of sense for the Sun in Libra in the 10th house, because the 10th house is the rulers. And if we have the Sun there, it makes a lot of sense, because the Sun is royalty, the Sun is monarchy. So this kind of makes it very possible for Capricorn to be the first house. Nonetheless, all right, so there's this energy. Okay, we have monarchy now. We're trying to be a bit more diplomatic. We're trying to do things in a more air kind of way. But the old fire energy of conflict and conquest and war keeps coming back. And basically, this, if we take Capricorn as the first house, this means that the fourth house is Aries, which makes a lot of sense, because it's a nation built on war. It is. And it's Saturn retrograde. It's a war that happened many times, and we keep coming back to that to define ourselves. And it's if Saturn, if Capricorn is the rising and the first house, Saturn in Aries in the fourth house, this means that the foundation, the fourth house is the foundation of the people and the identity of the country is fighters, basically. It's not necessarily wars that, you know, people can define themselves at, you know, it's not necessarily through actual wars that people can define themselves as fighters. It's just that it's like it's imprinted in them as a nation, this like fighting spirit of endurance somehow, and many times even endurance through war and armed conflict. And it makes a lot of sense if you look at their history. Also, what I'm getting right now, this is again energy reading. It's very possible that this is the fourth house, and with Saturn there in Aries, a lot of Bulgarians that were in oh my god, this is, I'm getting it, this is a powerful download. So listen, a lot of Bulgarians that were alive through those times of war, that were supposed to redefine the nation. I was about to say the nature. So possibly redefine the nature of the nation. They kept coming incarnate afterwards, and I'm getting at least 3 times as Bulgarians once again, because it's through their sacrifices, through the wars they've been in, obviously particularly for men, because they died in those wars. Like they kind of wanted to stick to the name. I'm getting so many downloads now. So they wanted to stick to the nation because they didn't have enough time to, I hear, preserve the nation. So listen, a lot of these souls, these people who were incarnate at the time, particularly in the 19th century, who, which for Europe, and not just Europe, but primarily for Europe, is the century of nationalism. At that time, this national identity stirred up in them, but these souls particularly, they belong to that conglomerate of souls that particularly built the Bulgarian Empire. Then they came back incarnate at those times. Oh my god. Like, they really are fighting souls. Listen, this nation is built by fighting souls who keep coming. Saturn in Aries in the 4th house. Keep coming back incarnate time and time again to define the nation and pave the foundation for the nation, for the other souls to be around in the nation. So these souls that defined and built the Bulgarian Empire later on came incarnate in the 19th century to be part of those independence wars, and then after that got the right to be incarnate in Bulgaria again and again for at least 3 more lifetimes in order to again build the nation. Again, like, there's this energy of Aries, war, but also Capricorn and Saturn, which is building. Because like this nation is built through wars. And I'm hearing from them listen. So basically Bulgaria as a nation particularly belongs to a group of souls, a conglomerate of souls that really wanted to do this. This is not to say that other Bulgarians are not Bulgarians, you know, but like how this happened and why it happened, and there's this group of souls that really wanted it, to make it like this, to make it this way. And they have this heritage, this karmic heritage of keep coming back incarnate in this nation, through this nation. This is their work of art. And it's a nation defined by war. This is how they wanted it. And they keep coming back incarnate to build it. And it's exactly like I said previously, it's the first energy of Sagittarius and then Capricorn settling into the nation, making it more mature. So they keep coming back incarnate. And after these particular wars, a lot of them gained the right for times of peace. Bulgaria could have been at war, but when they came incarnate later on, they came incarnate in more peaceful environments for themselves, even if the country might have still been at war. Okay, this was the download. Amazing. I love it. Wow. And this is why Bulgaria is not gonna last particularly long, you know, in the long span of history. And like when I say this, these souls are, it's like some of them are mad, are sad about it, especially the ones that fought really hard throughout those wars, especially the independence wars. I'm hearing we still have some time of it, we still have more time of it to enjoy it, to take pride in it, and to keep, like, basically now the building is over, the building of the nation is over, and now they just want to enjoy it. Ooh, so nice. Okay, wow. Okay. All right. That was amazing. I love that. I need a moment to recalibrate. Woo, give me a second. That was amazing. I loved it. Oh. Okay. Coming back to the chart. I'm just getting something like about them, the fact that they started as Asians and then got into Europe, like they think that's particularly interesting for them. They wanted it that way. They say they love Europe. Okay. I'm getting such a nice energy from them, like really loving the country and the place, and like these are particularly souls that grew through this experience. It's amazing. But like old souls that are proud of their conquest. That sounds a bit odd, but okay. But like proud of their conquest, like the conquest, not just territorial conquest, but also like the conquest of this energy itself and this journey. Okay. All right. So basically Bulgaria is like it's a journey of a particular group of souls, and that's why it's not that lasting throughout like the like I said, the long span of history. But it's packed with lessons for them and growth. That's amazing. All right. Whew. Then we have in Gemini, we no longer have anything in Taurus right now. And then we have in Gemini, we have Pluto at the 25th degree. Similarly, just like with the previous chart, Pluto is at a very mature degree. And then at the 29th degree of Gemini, we have the North Node. So again, just like with the sun in Libra, the North Node in Gemini, it's kind of like a call to be a bit more diplomatic, to not be so fiery, to not be so keen to start the conflict, to start the war, to go to arms. Basically, Gemini rules things that are small. Sagittarius rules things that are big. So the country got a lot smaller. But there's this energy, this lesson here for these souls in particular, and other souls who are come incarnate as Bulgarians, to deal with things that are small. to take Bulgaria as it is now, as a smaller country. Because it's getting ready for its demise, basically. But then again, if you're Bulgarian watching this, it's not gonna happen tomorrow, okay? It's getting ready for its demise, but this is a country that things take a lot longer for a country than for a human. So again, it's in the second part of its existence when it shrinks a bit, and it's like I said, so basically this started as Sagittarius enlarging things, and then it got into Capricorn energy, which makes things smaller but compact, more compact. So they have to deal with this energy and learn through this energy and integrate that. But they're still very proud. These are old souls of the land, basically, and they're proud of that. They're like proud of being that. Now, with the North Node in Pluto, with the North Node close to Pluto, Gemini also rules neighbors. Gemini is neighbors. So it makes a lot of sense. I wanted to say this since I was drawing the chart, basically, and I saw this. We have the South Node in Sagittarius. So the South Node is the Sagittarius is the country. Whether we look at Sagittarius as the rising for this chart or not, Sagittarius is the country nonetheless, at least how it used to be. So it's got the South Node in it, releasing territories, releasing portions of it, what it used to be. And then Gemini also rules, like I said, neighbors. There's a big focus on neighbors. The North Node is in Gemini. North Node is like what we focus on from now on. Also, with the North Node in Gemini, like there is this call for Bulgaria to like learn how to make new friends with possibly former enemies. But it also does talk a lot about Bulgaria's tendency to switch alliances. And Pluto is there with the North Node. This talks a lot about power struggles with neighbors, Gemini, neighbors. And I'm getting the energy of particularly the assassination that started the First World War. I don't know exactly how to explain this, but like I'm getting that energy as of like, well, it's neighbors because it's, you know, Serbia. and then the power struggle that emerged afterwards. So yeah, basically with Pluto there in the North Node, it's like power struggles with neighbors, power struggles that can be started by neighbors, and power struggles for neighbors or for the sake of neighbors. Which kind of makes sense. Then we have Neptune in Crab. The people are Christian, as always. Then we have Venus in Leo, which may be either the 9th house or the 8th house. I don't want to dive that deep into this energy. Then we have Jupiter at the 4th degree of Virgo. And Jupiter is still linked to the identity of the country, former empire. And now it's in Virgo. It's at the 4th degree of Virgo. And I'm specifically getting this energy that this was the starting point of the energy to the nation to be a bit more of the land, as in a lot more farmers, a lot more people connected to the land, like literally the land, because Virgo is earth. But we also have Mars in Virgo at the 26th degree, in a square to Pluto at the 25th degree of Gemini. This is a country rooted in war. You get this with, like, in the last chart we had Mars and Pluto conjunct. Now we have a square between Mars and Pluto. They're never gonna get out of it. Maybe they are in the next chart. We're gonna see. But it's still the energy of war, like conflict, deep, both internal and external conflict. Whew, this is, it's a lot. Mercury is in Scorpio. Which may be the 12th house. If this is the 12th house, if we take Sagittarius as the first house, then Scorpio is the 12th house. Then this means that Mercury is the ruler of the 7th house, which is the other nations. Other nations which are hidden enemies. The nations that Bulgaria doesn't really see as enemies, they are enemies. Now, I have a question though, because what are the nations that Bulgaria doesn't see as enemies, or at least at that time didn't see as enemies? Maybe Russia. There's this thing with Bulgaria. Even throughout the Second World War, they love the Russians. They just love the Russians. They don't see the red flags with the Russians. Now, obviously, this doesn't apply for all people, duh. But a lot of Bulgarians in the past and even today, they were, and some still are, just in love with Russia. Ew. Ew. I cannot understand that. But, well, you do you, boo. Yeah. And their primary reason for that, for liking Russia so much, for many of them, is the fact that, Russia started the Russian-Turkish wars and therefore helped them against the Turkish, and they're also Slavs, so they're brothers, but don't trust the Russians. I mean, I'm not talking about a random individual, just because, I'm talking about the government, the country itself as Russia. No. But Bulgaria saw that as a great ally. Whenever a very big political player helps another country, it's always with an interest, it's always with an agenda. That's all I'm gonna say. Alright, I don't want to go that much deeper into that particular chart because I'm gonna make this video 7 hours long. And other placements like this one, like Venus in Leo, I don't feel like it's that important for this conversation, for the country. Even though it would make sense, because it's a beautiful position. The Sun is in Libra and Venus is in Leo. So basically each one is in each other's sign. So it's a beautiful flow of energy between the two, and it's also a sextile between them. Which talks about their monarchy and the fact that their monarchy, might have meant peace for them, might have. But I myself don't know that much about what the monarchy meant for Bulgaria, so I'm not gonna go into that. But I know that the monarchy, just like that one episode I told you about, when they had that one stupid king that wanted more and more land and turned against its own allies and all of that. Yeah, this doesn't really tell me that the monarchy really brought them peace. Maybe they had other better kings, I don't know. I haven't gotten into the full history of the country, and frankly, if you want to go into the full history of a country, you need years of study. So, okay. Then communism happened. And no. It's a no. It's a big no. Now, Bulgarian communism was not as severe as other countries' communism, like my country of Romania. Our communism, no. There was a time when the communist Romanian leader went to China and North Korea. He saw what kind of communism they had, and he said he liked it and he wanted to replicate that in Romania. And that's what he did. So Romanians had a very terrible time through communism, and that's another reason why we don't like the Russians. But for Bulgarians, communism wasn't that extreme. I'm not saying it was a particularly good thing for them, because it's never a good thing. What I saw is that they had at one point a communist leader that was terribly incompetent. And they didn't like him at all. But the communist era for Bulgarians is not defined by severe poverty and famine and struggle for the people like it was for other countries. Nonetheless, I'm not going to talk about the chart for their communist era because I don't want to look at that. It should have never happened to anyone. And I'm gonna talk about their chart as a post-communist country. Yay! So we have the 5th of November 1919. Now another thing I want to specify is that the transition that they had from communism to another type of government was a lot different. It was a lot easier. Just like their communist era was easier compared to other countries right next to them. Like I said, my own country of Romania. So was their transition from communism to a more democratic government, more or less democratic. They had elections, basically. Which, for us, basically the communist regime in Bulgaria saw the protests, because at the time in 1989 there was a huge wave of protests all across the communist countries in Eastern Europe. And certain governments understood the assignment, certain governments didn't. In Romania, the communist leader didn't, and that's exactly why the Romanian Revolution was very violent. It turned against its own people. It was a lot of manipulation, and it wasn't even a revolution. It was a coup d'état, that thing. It was just, nobody understood what exactly was happening. Everything was so and basically Romania was the last country from the former Eastern Bloc to get out of communism, for a reason. Because like I said, communism in Romania was the toughest in the Eastern Bloc. So the leader in Romania was clinging on to what he had, because he had built a country of his own, basically, that was just his toy to play with, and he had a full personality cult and all of that, so he didn't want to give that up. And that's why in Romania the communist revolution ended with the public execution of that guy and his wife, which is exactly what they deserved. And it happened on Christmas Day. That's not the case for Bulgaria. Bulgaria's transition was different. It wasn't that violent. It wasn't the communist regime did not cling on to the status quo that much. And they understood that, well, the people want something else. And they had elections. They had elections. We had a public execution on Christmas Day. They had elections. They had elections. Oh my god. We're not the same. Okay. So basically, starting with 89, there's this transition for Bulgaria, and like I said, it's a lot smoother, and they have elections, all of that. It's still the Communist Party that gets elected. Yeah. Basically, this is what happened in most, if not all, most, if not all, of the former communist countries. When the new status quo arrived, the population was so disoriented and didn't know what to choose. So that's why in a lot of countries, if not all, it was still the communist regime that won the elections, just that they had a different name of the time, a different name for their party. But a lot of things changed through the 90s. Okay, so for Bulgaria, at this point, we're gonna take Capricorn rising. I don't care. It's Capricorn. And like I said, at that time, there were certain placements in Capricorn that made it possible for these nations to get out of communism. Yay. And we have Neptune at the 7th degree in Capricorn. Uranus, 7th degree. Neptune at the 12th degree. Saturn at the 20th degree. And we can take this as the first house. We can also take Sagittarius as well as the first house. But like I said, this energy means revolution, going against communism, wanting something new, and protest. A lot of protests, which is what happened in Eastern Europe. A lot of people protesting. Then we have the North Node in Aquarius. There are certain things when looking at the charts of countries, there are certain things that are just synchronicities. Just like with the chart of Romania, because like for Romania as well, there were multiple charts to look at. And for both charts, it was Capricorn rising. Because for Romania, I know the hour, so I can say which is the ascendant. And it was Capricorn rising for both charts. I was amazed when I saw. For Bulgaria, so we start with the 3rd of March, 1878, with the North Node in Aquarius. 15th of November, 1990, North Node in Aquarius. Yeah? Yeah? This time around, it's a different call in comparison to the North Node in Aquarius, South Node in Leo that they had in 1878. This time around, North Node in Aquarius revolution. Revolution and freedom for the people. But it's the same thing. Like, even back then, it was still the same thing. Freedom for the people. But it was a different social context. Now it's the same thing. Freedom for the people. Yeah? Freedom for the people. Then Pisces, Aries, Taurus, no placement. Then we have Mars retrograde in Gemini at the 9th degree and 55th minute. 55th minute. Okay. Mars retrograde. But it's in Gemini. So Mars in Gemini is not really the type of Mars that is ready to go to war. Yay! It's more like a verbal war, if you want. That one we can do it. But it's a retrograde Mars. So maybe this is the time for Bulgaria to really sit down and like really integrate what all of the wars that they've been through really meant for them and their mentality, which is Gemini. Also, for a Capricorn rising, again, Aries is the 4th house, is the foundation. So at this point, we have the ruler of that house in Gemini. We're thinking about that. And it's retrograde. We're retrospective. But it's also in the potential 7th house, which is the house of the other people and neighbors. So it's the wars that we had with other people and with our neighbors. What did that mean for us? What did that bring to us, to our nation, to our people, to our foundation, to our roots and ancestry? So I do believe it makes a lot of sense for Bulgaria to have an Aries 4th house roots of war. It makes a lot of sense. Then we have Chiron in Crab, the sign of Crab. The sign of Crab is the sign of the people. Chiron there, it means this is the nation that is healing. From what? From everything. It's just healing in itself of the nation, of the people, of the everyday individual. Now, if we take that into the longer context of the people of the age of Aquarius, the old souls, the healers, the menders of wounds, basically, the people that keep coming incarnate in this age to heal the trauma of the past and to fix the collective of the earth. They're also gonna help that energy, and this energy in itself is gonna help them as well, because it's gonna help them heal the collective. Chiron is the healer, the wounded healer. So this is a nation that is wounded but trying to heal. And you can see that. You can see that with Bulgaria later on entering the European Union. Which is great. It's great. Maybe I love this idea of the European nations being brought together in at peace with one another and really in union with one another. It's great. Okay, then in Leo, we have Jupiter and the South Node. So, also, by the way, I want to specify something. The North Node and the South Node are at the 0 degrees of Aquarius, respectively, Leo. when we have placements at the 0 degree, it means that's the first time for someone doing something, but the nodes are retrograde. So the last degree for them is actually the 0 degree. And it shows because we looked at the previous chart, at the first chart, they already had this placement in the past. They've already been through this. They've already tangled with this energy. Now they're wrapping it up. They are maturing this energy, which is great. It's great. And also, I want to point out that this time around, the independence for the people, the freedom for the people was not brought to them with bloodshed. Okay, Jupiter in Leo. This just makes me think of the fact that for them, there's something very interesting about them. The last heir of the royal family of previous Bulgaria, like the Bulgaria before communism, the last heir of that family, after Bulgaria got out of communism, was elected as prime minister in 2004, I think. I'm not really sure, but it was in the 2000s, I think, and he got elected as prime minister. Isn't that interesting? And it's kind of makes me think of that. Then we have the moon. That day was between the 25th degree of Libra and the 7th degree of Scorpio. If it's in Libra, it's the 10th house, which this would mean that this time around more and more leaders come from are more like the common people, or at least more relatable to the common people, as opposed to the previous placement of the sun in Libra when it was monarchy. But it could also be in the moon could also be in Scorpio. We don't know exactly. Now Scorpio could be the 11th or the 12th house, depending on the ascendant being either Sagittarius or Capricorn. Now in Scorpio, we have Pluto at the 17th degree. Like I said, potentially the moon anywhere between the 0 and the 7th degree. Pluto at the 17th degree. The sun at the 22nd degree. And Venus at the 26th degree. And this placement makes me think that Bulgaria is Capricorn rising and Libra is its 10th house. Because all of the downloads that I got previously of Bulgaria are not lasting too long as a country from this moment in time. It's shown here. So, the sun with Pluto is like the sun, the identity, with Pluto is transforming. Now, Pluto in Scorpio, it's in domicile, and Bulgaria, just like all former communist countries, is a millennial. Millennials are Pluto in Scorpio. And it's a lot about transformation. Intense, deep transformation, and irreversible. For the Eastern European countries, it makes a lot of sense, because like we got out of communism, no one wants to go back there, other than like some old people who just nobody understands them, but they exist. Yes, they exist, but nobody cares about them, and they should shut up. um, So the sun with Pluto, it's a deep transformation of identity. How do we see ourselves and how do we present ourselves to the world? And with Venus there, Venus with Pluto, Venus with Pluto is basically Hades and Persephone's, the virgin, the maiden, representing the seed of the earth, the daughter of Demeter, the goddess of the land, taken by Hades, the ruler of the underworld, into the underworld. And this matured her and changed her forever. And it's deep and intense transformation, sometimes a blessing in disguise, but can oftentimes come as a crisis. So this energy is there for Bulgaria. Everything involving money, resources, beauty of life, any kind of pleasure of life, it's in a struggle. To, I'm hearing, emancipate itself somehow. But like both the sun and Pluto are authority figures, and together is like the authority figures, the rulers are grasping, like really grasping. So there's a fight for Bulgarian people at this time. There's no longer the question of fighting other nations, fighting other people. It's more like a question of fighting your own and not succumbing to that. Many people I'm hearing will succumb to that in Bulgaria. Like, there's this thing of like evil rulers, evil political figures that are grasping and trying to take from the land and take from the people the resources, the money, the pleasures of life. But there's also this other side of things with the sun and the energy I'm getting here, the download is that literally God is on your side as people to fight against this. Also, there's unfortunately, this placement can bring a lot of abuse of women in its low polarity. The sun is male and Pluto is abuse, and there could be that theme playing on. So literally anything feminine and beautiful and some things that give pleasure to life in the material way of life. There are people grasping at that and trying to take that into their hands and just keep it for themselves. And there's a call for the people of Bulgaria to not let that happen. All right. And now with Mars in Gemini, I feel like there's a lot to say, that like there's more to say about that particular placement. Like Bulgaria's enemies kind of feel like still the old enemies, but there's not that much of an actual conflict left. Yeah, that was it. And in Sagittarius we have Mercury. Now, Mercury is the ruler of Gemini. And if we take Sagittarius as the former identity of the country, then the ruler of the other people is in this area of the former identity of the country. So now it's like there's a call for the nation to redefine itself and look at itself more through the lens of how do the other people see me? Is that okay? Am I the good guy in the eyes of other people? But this chart is a lot better than the previous two charts that we had. So, yay! Yay! And what I was getting with this triple placement in Scorpio, Pluto, the Sun, and Venus, possibly even the Moon. Since we can very much take Capricorn as the rising, Libra means 10th house. And the Sun with Pluto in Scorpio, the Sun is, like I said, the identity itself and the spirit of the person or the country, which is, yes, undergoing a deep transformation, but it since the 10th house is Libra and Venus is with Pluto in Scorpio and the Sun, there is the energy of death at one point, and it's there. Because the Sun is also at the 22nd degree, and there's this particular theory, it's the degree theory, started by a Serbian astrologer, and a lot of people agree with his theory. In his theory, basically, the 22nd degree is the degree of being killed or killing. And since this is with Pluto in Scorpio and the ruler of the 10th, it's like it's assassin, like it's being killed. But you don't need to worry about that, at least not today. Yeah. So this has been Bulgaria. I loved this video, and I loved the downloads I was getting, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed it.